Welcome to Speak English Podcast with your host, Georgiana, the podcast that will help you to speak English fluently with no grammar and no textbooks.
Hi, everybody. I am Georgiana, your English teacher and founder of SpeakEnglishPodcast.com. My mission is to help you to speak English fluently. Today we will talk about humor in English. There are many different ways that a person can be funny, and I will give you some examples of different types of humor in English. And with a mini story, you will improve your fluency. I will tell you a story while asking many questions that you will need to answer as quickly as possible. It's like having a conversation with another person in English. Before we get started, visit my website, SpeakEnglishPodcast.com, and get the transcript for free. Okay, let's start. First, let's talk about what we call a funny person, or at least someone who tries to be funny. Number 1. A goofy person. For example, we have the typical goofy person or goofball who does silly things, including funny dances and dressing up in ridiculous costumes. Sometimes they make funny mistakes, although those are usually on purpose. Clowns are usually considered goofy. Number 2. A prankster. A prankster is someone who plays practical jokes on people. Practical jokes are tricks that confuse or frighten others for a short period. I personally don't enjoy pulling pranks, let alone being pranked. However, many people have a great time watching videos on the internet containing these practical jokes. Number 3. A self-deprecating person. If you watch stand-up comedy, you will often find this type of self-deprecating person who makes jokes that make them look bad. They joke about their shortcomings and problems, although sometimes I find that they can even go too far with their storytelling, and I find their performance humiliating. Number 4. A witty person. A witty person says funny and brilliant things. Witty people are also quick with their jokes. An example of witty humor would be, too many people run out of ideas long before they run out of words. Now let's look at the different types of humor in English. Quirky sense of humor. Someone with a quirky sense of humor tells strange, unpredictable jokes, and they frequently use improvisation. We also find dry or deadpan sense of humor. Someone with a dry or deadpan sense of humor usually says funny things with a serious, calm expression. They don't smile, laugh, or make silly faces. This type of humor is my favorite, and the people who tell these types of jokes are usually very intelligent. We also find a wrapped sense of humor. Having a wrapped or twisted sense of humor means making fun of things that many people find scary or offensive. We're talking about jokes about illness and tragic events. And of course, this kind of humor can go wrong in so many ways. The truth is that there are many types of humor that rarely make you laugh, such as, for example, the corny humor. Cheesy or corny jokes are supposed to be funny, but they're not. They're too silly or too predictable. For example, jokes involving two words that sound alike are too corny. Another type of jokes that don't make me laugh are the lame jokes. Lame jokes just aren't funny. A lame joke is actually worse than a corny joke. For instance, you might laugh at a corny joke, even if you think it's awful. But trust me, a lame joke just isn't funny. So today, we have learned several types of humor in English. Now it's time for you to practice your speech with a mini story. By the way, if you want to know how to speak English using the right techniques, visit speakenglishpodcast.com and subscribe to my mailing list. I will send you my 5 golden rules to speak English fluently, and it's completely free. Now let's continue with a mini story. What's a mini story? A mini story is very simple. I give you information using phrases, and then I ask you questions. After each question, there will be some seconds of silence. It's your turn to answer the question. Just try to give an easy and a short answer, not a complex one. After your answer, I'll give you the correct answer. And just like that, I'll tell you a story with questions and answers. Are you ready? Jim was a comedian that was hired for a show. Was Jim a comedian or a bohemian? A comedian. Jim was a comedian. What was Jim's profession? A comedian. Jim was a comedian. What was Jim hired to do? Jim was hired for a show. Who was hired? Jim. Jim was hired for a show. For several weeks, he spent day and night preparing his best jokes. Did Jim spend several months preparing his best jokes? No. Jim didn't spend several months. He spent several weeks preparing his best jokes. What was Jim preparing? Jokes. He was preparing his best jokes. Was he preparing his worst jokes? No. Jim was preparing his best jokes. When he began his performance, he explained several very clever jokes. Did he explain a few mediocre jokes at the beginning? No. He didn't explain a few mediocre jokes. What were the jokes like? Clever. He explained several clever jokes. When did he explain his jokes? At the beginning of his performance. Jim explained his jokes at the beginning. Something was wrong because Jim couldn't get anyone to laugh. Was everything going smoothly? No. Something was wrong. How was Jim's performance going? Not good. Jim's performance wasn't going well. Something was wrong. Could Jim get anyone to laugh? No, Jim couldn't get anyone to laugh. Did anyone laugh? No, nobody laughed. So Jim left the show crying his eyes out. Did Jim leave the show overjoyed? No, Jim didn't leave the show overjoyed. He wasn't happy at all. He left the show crying. Who was crying his eyes out? Jim. He was crying his eyes out. He was crying uncontrollably. How was Jim crying? Jim was crying his eyes out. He was crying uncontrollably. It turns out Jim didn't know he'd been hired for a contest. Whoever laughed lost the prize. Did Jim know he had been hired for a contest? No, Jim had no idea he had been hired for a contest. The person who laughed lost or won the prize? Whoever laughed lost the prize. Do you think that's why no one laughed at Jim's jokes? Yes, no one wanted to lose the prize. So that's why they didn't laugh at Jim's jokes. Perfect! It's the end of this mini story. As you can see, through questions and answers, you can practice and improve your speech, just like in a real conversation. It is one of the techniques that I use in my premium courses. I recommend you to take a look at speakenglishpodcast.com/courses. Okay, we have reached the end of this episode. Remember to listen to it several times. It will help you with your English. Do you know how you can help me? You can share the podcast with your friends and family. Tell them to go to speakenglishpodcast.com and get my free mini course. That would mean a lot to me. Thanks. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Did you enjoy today's episode? Get the transcript now at speakenglishpodcast.com.